Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Chamber Chat. I'm Grymek, the Executive Director of the Melrose Chamber of Commerce and your hostess for the show. And as you know from watching many episodes of our show, it is dedicated to local businesses here in Melrose, Massachusetts. And tonight is a pretty special episode for me because it's my first time interviewing one of our at-home business members. So if you've been watching the show, you know we've done a lot of the brick and mortar stores and restaurants here in Melrose, and now we're kind of taking you to the other part of our business community. And I'm really excited because I've got Kathy Vines of Clever Girl Organizing.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks so much for having me today.
It's great to see you. You're always at a lot of chamber events, but it's nice to see you here on the show. So
I appreciate being your first at-home business guest.
Your first at-home business. So for everyone that's watching, that's just tuning in and hearing about Clever Girl Organizing, let us know what it is and what the services are that you offer.
Sure. I started my business 5 years ago, and at the time I really started just as a home-based professional organizer where I worked with people in their home to help them declutter, help them get organized, help them streamline processes. My business has expanded over 5 years. I do a lot of work with small business owners now as well.
Good.
I do a lot of speaking. I wrote a book. I do challenges. I've really expanded to be able to reach as many people as possible to help them face their issues with clutter, with organization, and living a little bit more peacefully in their lives.
Sure. And so when you say that, I mean, if someone's watching at home, how does someone know if they need to work with a professional organizer, right?
You know, I think for some people, they know immediately they need help. For others, it takes a long time for them to come to the realization not only that they need help, but they're willing to hire somebody to help them. That's another step. I think I find a few hallmarks. If you're the kind of person who says, I've started and stopped or started and given up a number of times, that's a sign that somebody might need some professional help.
Meaning like, you know, I know I need to get rid of these old clothes that I don't use anymore, but they're still there, right? You've maybe given a few away, but not
or you've started and you've just given up and said, I can't even get through and create a bag of clothes to give away. I've started in my closet and just gotten overwhelmed.
Right.
I think I find people get overwhelmed with clothes, with paperwork. That's a big one that triggers phone calls to me because it can be so overwhelming. So the first is, if you're somebody who's tried a number of times and not succeeded, then that might be a person who works with a professional organizer. Sometimes people just say, I've been in my space so long, I just can't even think differently. I need fresh eyes. I need somebody else who can come in and knows different ways, because I've worked with so many different people. They could look at what I'm dealing with and come up with some different ideas about how I might organize my space, organize my time, my systems differently.
Right. So it sounds like, you know, you see clients who they sort of know they need some assistance or some support, some professional support, and they, you know, just need someone to come in there and help them. And sometimes it's just like, maybe they don't know where to start. They know they need something, right?
And I find I'll have a lot of clients who are looking to downsize, right? They're not looking to move in the next month, but sometime in the next year or so, and it's on their mind already, and it's already giving them stress. But just like you said, they don't know where to start, and they need somebody else who's going to help them, just guide them through the process. How do we prioritize? How do we start with the easy stuff? Because we know what the hard stuff is that we're going to have to work up to. So it's sometimes I'm just like a guide and a facilitator for a process that they're probably capable of doing, but they're so overwhelmed, they need a partner.
They need a partner, and it sounds like also maybe someone that's, I mean, I think in this day and age we get attached to stuff, and all sorts of stuff, whether that's, like you said, paperwork that we need for our files, things that might be or supposed to be sentimental to us that someone in our family gave us. And so now they've got someone, like an outside person, who can come over and almost like give permission, right? To not permission, but to allow someone to get rid of things, right? So you kind of lend that to them.
I do, and I wouldn't call it permission, but I wouldn't surprise me if my clients called it that. You know, people ask me all the time, are you going to make me throw things away? And I say, I don't live here. These are your goals. This is your house. This is your stuff. I want to help you bring your own goals to life. So,
so it's not this pressure, right? It's not like someone has to say, oh gosh, well, she's going to come in and she's going to make me go through everything, right? Because I mean, do you sometimes probably walk into someone's home or their business and maybe the first few times everything is still there, like it stays, and you know?
Yes, and sometimes more than the first two times. And I'll have some clients who only do decluttering or organizing work if they have an appointment with me. And it stays preserved until the next time I'm there. But I think that's okay, because these are people who probably weren't doing any time on it beforehand. So that's part of the investment of working with me. They say, Kathy's coming on Tuesday. At least I know I'm going to get 4 hours in, and I'm going to make work happen, because Kathy doesn't let me off easy. Like, I'm not a slave driver, but I try and keep people focused. Anytime I hear somebody call, they say, oh, you know, I start one thing and I move to the other room, and then I find something else distracting, so I move to that room. I'm one of the people saying, okay, I need to listen for that when we're working together, because I know focus is what they need.
Keep them in the one room at that time, one at a time, and move on.
So when they're dealing with things that might be hard to let go of, focus is an easy thing to just say, oh, I can't deal with this now. It's too hard. It's too hard. And I want to help them focus, and I want to help them stay with it and say, I know it's painful, but you've told me this is what your goals are. Your goals are you need to move out of this space. Your goals are you and your spouse have been fighting over this for a long time. Let's try and get there. What are ways we can prioritize your things so that the things that matter most to you aren't really being held captive by the things that don't?
So it sounds like then each approach, or that your approach to each client, whether that's an individual or business, is pretty specific and personalized to them. Because you've got people who are trying to get rid of things for different reasons. You've got people who are holding on to things for different reasons, different personalities. So you've got to also identify that, right, when you're working with your clients.
And the book that I published last year is one which really helped me explain what I had found so far with working with clients in the first 4 years.
You have a copy of the book. Yeah, let's take a look at it.
It's called Clever Girl's Guide to Living with Less. And it's my business is Clever Girl Organizing, so Clever Girl's Guide goes with it.
That's great.
And it is about the psychological and emotional barriers that people face most commonly. Like, I might need this someday. I paid good money for this. Somebody might want to buy this from me. I'm holding it on for somebody else. The idea of, but this is still good, like, it's perfectly fine. Why would I get rid of it? And so these are the things that come up when people start to hold on to something and say, well, I couldn't get rid of this because this is still good. And then I'll say, well, do you use coffee cups? Do you drink coffee? I know is chamber chat important to you? I know it's important to me, but is it important to you? And we'll go through to say, what's underneath that attachment? How did you come about getting it? What has it meant to you? So each client is different. And almost each item in each client's house is different.
I imagine. So it sounds like you are then, like, you have to dig deep with some people, right? Because to get to that, because I imagine while they are appreciative of your help, they've come out to hire you to do the job, you almost need to help them get to the end result of, like, the why they can get rid of it, why it's okay to do that, or why they want to hang on to something and try to go down that path with them. So
absolutely. And again, I'm always good about trying to bring them back to, why did you bring me in the first place, right? Because you know, like any other project, it gets worse before it gets better. And so sometimes you need that motivation in the middle, saying, remember, we're here for a reason. This mattered to you, so let's stay on top of it and uncover some of the tougher things.
So I mean this business, like, already we've uncovered, like, a lot of facets and things that you do. I mean, how does one in your industry then, like, did you get certified in this? Like, do you go to seminars? Like, tell us a little bit about how you then, it's one thing to say, I want to start this business, I'm kind of good at it. How do I then take it to that next level that you're at now?
And I think there are a lot of people who would be great at being an organizer, but that's not the same thing as owning an organizing business. And that's one of the ways that you see people succeed or maybe not be so successful in my industry. So I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have an MBA. And so I kind of started in a very heavy education-focused life. And then I had 20 years in human resources where I was certified.
That makes sense. Now that we're hearing about this.
So
the psychology background.
Exactly. And I became a certified coach. So for me, I've always had a commitment to learning and developing and learning more. So when I started in professional organizing, I said, you know, that doesn't stop here. I joined NAPO, which is the National Association for Productivity and Organizing Professionals. So we have a professional association for professional organizers. And they offer classes. And I joined another organization called the Institute for Challenging Disorganization, which actually focuses on unique personalities. So people with chronic disorganization, people with hoarding disorder, students, elderly, and ADHD. And I actually found I never would have thought going into my business that I would be working with people with ADHD, especially adults. But it turned out to be, I stumbled into it with one client, and it turned out to be a great fit for me. So then I said, oh, I need to study as much as I can about this, especially ADHD as it relates to organizing and all the functional characteristics that go along with that.
Wow.
And then another thing within my industry is one can become what's called a certified professional organizer. It's an accredited certification. And less than 5% of professional organizers in the United States achieve this.
Oh, wow.
It's a really high bar, not only in terms of how much work you do hands-on with clients, but also passing a really hard exam.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I was able to achieve that last year. And for me, that was a goal that I thought, gee, I hope by year 7 I would get that. And by year 4, I did, because I really was able to focus and say, this education and this development and this certification is important to me. And I think it's important to my business and growing my business. I'm a big fan of, if you're a business owner, what is the most you can do to develop yourself that then helps serve your community?
Right, or your customers or your clients. And I think I keep going back to this, but like all of this education or additional certifications that you've gotten has allowed you then to bring in that other level of expertise in working with your clients. And maybe even to some, maybe they don't even realize, right, that they need someone who can really understand them on that level, right, if they're struggling with something else, in addition to the, whether they're elderly, have ADHD, things like that. So
I think there are, there's a lot of people out there in the marketplace who are professional organizers, and they'll charge a huge range of prices. And so somebody might call me and say, oh, wow, well, that's more than so-and-so. And I'll say, I'm not the kind of organizer who's going to come to your house while you're, doing something else and straighten up your pantry. At the end of the day, you'll need me to come back in 2 weeks to straighten up your pantry again. I'm about developing skills. I'm about helping people unlock and untangle their relationship to their stuff. I would love to work myself out of a job. If you have suddenly mastered, not suddenly, but if you have actually mastered saying, I get it. I know what my relationship with stuff is. I know how to say no to things. I'm shopping less. I'm making quicker decisions on paper. All of those things that had gotten in your way before then. If you're doing that because of our work together, then everybody gets a gold star, and I'm thrilled.
No, that's great. Is there, among like the different clients that you see, is there a couple things that you see as like a pattern among all the different clients in terms of types of things that are holding people up, whether that's clothing or paperwork or souvenirs, or is it really just different with each person? Is there something as common that you've been
I see a little bit. I would look at it more around generationally, what I see, based on different groups that I work with. So I'll work with a lot of elderly folks or baby boomers and older, and they are struggling. They struggle with the memorabilia. And gosh, I raised my family in this house. How can I let go of these things? They're struggling with the fact that their kids probably don't want their stuff, so they thought all along that was their plan, and now they don't know what to do with it.
So now they have no plan, or they need a new one.
They need help with exit strategies. When I work with people who might be in the sandwich generation, especially moms who still are involved with some caretaking with older parents but still have kids at home, they are just overwhelmed. And whether that's overwhelmed with stuff or overwhelmed with their space or their time or anything else. So things kind of fall apart a little bit because their home tends to fall a little further down the prioritization line. Excuse me. And then I'll have younger moms, and I always joke that everything was fine when they had their first kid, but the second kid, the house blew up. Those are the phone calls I get.
I think I know of somebody that might have happened too.
Suddenly you realize that the systems that you put in place for baby 1 definitely don't work for baby 2 plus toddler. And so a lot of that work, and honestly, a lot of that population is why I got into working with people in this space in the first place. I saw people struggling and unhappy with who they are as a wife, as a mom, as a homemaker, some of them who are employees. And I said, I can help them get out from under this.
It doesn't have to be this way.
I can help them figure out what's getting in their way, how do we move around it. And in that population, they're struggling with, everyone in my family's buying me toys for my kids, even though I tell them not to. I have all the hand-me-downs that everybody's been so generous with, but they're 3 seasons away from my kids. Or, I don't know if I'm done yet maybe having kids. Maybe I should still save everything because I would hate to have to buy all this all over again. But I'm in a Melrose house with 3 bedrooms and 1 bath and, a semi-wet basement. I have no place to put that.
That's interesting. Yeah, and you talk about the generations. So you've got like, different personalities to begin with, different types of homes, right, that you're going into, different maybe things that people are struggling with personally, different generations. So it's really this customized approach then to when you're working with your clients, which is really great that you can do that. And it sounds like the education and being out there, in your industry has really helped you.
Absolutely. And I have a really strong network of people, other organizers across the country, even in other countries. So one of the things that I think is most important as an organizer is to be resourceful and have a network. So if somebody says, oh, do you know anybody who's done this? Or have you ever heard of anybody who's done that? It's like, I don't, but I can think of 3 people I can call who have. And I can get you an answer by tomorrow. I love being that kind of help for my clients too. And that works a lot with my small business owners. Especially they'll say things like, I'm thinking about putting in an inventory management system. Have you done that? No, but I know people who have, and I've put in lots of other systems. I'm sure we can figure this one out. Or somebody, oh, I really work with lawyers. Oh, you know what? I actually know somebody who focuses totally on lawyers. Let me pick her brain. So that's been a great way for me to work with the small business owners in different niches.
That's great. And so you've got this outside your clients. You've got all these other sort of colleagues, if you will, because I imagine we've talked about this a little bit off camera that. Being an at-home business or a business of one employee can sometimes be maybe a little isolating. Like, you've obviously, built the business very successfully, but there will be a time where something might come up that maybe you haven't seen before, or maybe you just need to ask somebody what else to do, and you're sort of looking left, looking right. It's just you in your home office. To be able to rely on what other people have done within the industry, it sounds like that's really important for you to stay connected.
It is, and I think being an at-home business owner is challenging. I think there are 2 kinds of at-home business people who are solopreneurs like me, or people who are part of a larger organization where they're one of many. They just happen to be in their home.
Like a remote employee.
But they have a network to pull on naturally. For me, I'm lucky that I have my NAPO colleagues. There's a New England chapter, and we meet once a month, so I've been able to develop, again, not only local resources, but local friendships through that. But I'm the kind of person who likes to interact with people, and it's one of the reasons why working with clients is great. So if I have a client day, that's great. If I don't have a client day, I'm at home saying,
okay, what do I do? It's been a couple hours now. It feels a little quiet.
Laundry's done. So what's next?
Get out.
What's in the fridge? So it's hard to stay motivated and focused in that home business, especially when you're like me and an extrovert and really want to interact with people.
No. Well, that's good. I mean, you sort of know your triggers there, right? For that point, we talk about triggers. So you mentioned, in your opening, like, your business is really grown and done a lot in 5 years. What's something that you're really proud of? I mean, besides, I could say everything, right? You're proud of, but is there something in particular that you're really proud of?
There's some client experiences that I'm really proud of because I know they turned a real corner and I really helped change their life, and I'm grateful for that.
That must feel so good.
It does. 20 years in human resources, it's hard to feel like you made a difference in somebody's life. Now I get to do that every day.
Fulfilling.
But, my book and my certification last year were really big accomplishments. Again, they were just on me to achieve. This past year, I've gotten a lot more media.
Speaking engagements.
Speaking engagements. I was featured in the Boston Globe today. Just today on the front cover is my name, which is crazy.
Awesome. The Better Homes and Gardens.
Oh, the Better Homes and Gardens magazine. Actually, I brought a copy.
Oh, great.
So Better Homes and Gardens has a quarterly magazine called The Secrets of Getting Organized. And it features about 10 different organizers on different topics.
That's great.
It's beautiful. It's the kind you'd look up and say, oh, I want to live in this house.
This looks awesome.
So this is the 2nd quarterly issue I've been featured in.
That's great.
I got the connection really randomly, but they were just like, keep it coming, keep the ideas coming. We love having you. And I love the opportunity to be able to share what I know and what I'm passionate about with such a broad audience. A lot of organizers get to do it one-on-one every day in people's homes or people's businesses, but the fact that I get a bigger platform, I'm just so grateful.
And be speaking. I mean, you were recently in Florida. Speaking,
right?
So you're kind of taking Clever Girl Organizing on the road here.
In fact, I spoke in Florida 2 weeks ago. I'm speaking in Connecticut next week, and then Illinois at the end of the month.
That's great.
not really sure how somebody told me I need to start getting one of those maps where I can say what states have I spoken in.
Right.
I didn't even realize that.
That's really cool.
But I love doing that work. And again, I'll do corporate kind of lunch and learn things, talking about time management and productivity and goal setting. So going into people's organizations to speak. But then I also do more community organizations. So I've spoken at the library a few times. I love working at the library. I worked at the Melrose Family Room a couple of weeks ago talking about organizing paperwork and photos.
There's a lot of toys in the Melrose Family Room, by the way. There's a lot of toys there.
But so being able, different groups, bring in to say, what can you speak about? And say, here's 10 things I can talk about. And if you have something in particular that is on your mind, let's figure it out. I love being able to interact with the audience and just not assume that what I think I know about the topic and what they're struggling with is true. So I always love some interactivity too.
So it sounds like, you're getting into people's homes and their businesses, but you're also taking yourself outside of that and into this broader kind of arena where you can speak to folks in various communities and things like that. So then for people who are watching, what are a couple tips, since you are giving some, Kathy is for hire. Let's just make sure that we put that out there. We like to support all our chamber members, but what are some kind of freebie tips that you might tell people if they're watching and saying, what are some things that I should be doing or looking for?
I'd love to share a few. And I shared some in Boston Globe today that I'll kind of hit on. My first one that I tell everybody is just accept that everything in your house has to have a home. Right. If it doesn't have a home, that means you're just moving it from surface to surface.
And you mean a home within the home.
Right. Where does it live permanently? Because the only way that you're going to hit reset on your space is if there's a place to put something back to. So if you have something that's been sitting on your kitchen counter for a long time, look at it and say, where does this go? If you don't have an answer, it's time to come up with one. I think another tip that I talk about, really with a simple tip, is never leave a room empty-handed. Always scan around saying, that doesn't go here. When we're done, this needs to go in the kitchen. It just kind of helps not make the process of cleaning and organizing and tidying up later less overwhelming.
So just to interrupt the tips for 1 second, it sounds like with both of those, that's not necessarily like the living with less or getting rid of stuff. There's this other part that's just like, sometimes all it takes is for you to be mindful of where things go and identifying it, Not letting dishes pile up in your TV room if you happen to do some late night snacking or something. Bring the dishes back into the kitchen for wherever they go.
That's where things kind of get to overwhelmed, You might have the perfect amount of things for your life, but if it still feels chaotic and it still feels overwhelming to keep up on it, there are some tips that you can do to do that. The living with less side, I would point to a couple things. The first is, I like to talk about it as kind of know what your danger zone is. Are you a future clutterer or a past clutterer? A future clutterer is somebody who's always saving things because I might need it in the future. I'm not using it now, but I might need it in the future.
It's the possibility of needing it.
I've imagined a scenario in my mind in which this would have been either helpful or necessary. So I want to make sure I hold on to it, because if that situation came about, I would hate not having it, especially if I knew I had it in the first place. And I never question people as would they actually have found it? In that case, we'll just assume they would have.
Or remember they had it or something.
Exactly. And then the past clutterers are the ones who most of what they are collecting in overabundance are things from their past. They're not using anymore, and not just memorabilia, They might be functional things like, well, I used to play tennis, so I still have tennis rackets. I used to wear suits to work, so I have suits. So these tend to be things that are attached to identities we used to be. And it's hard to accept that we're not that person anymore. We may not get to be that person anymore. Yet we have all this stuff that's connected to it. So that's somebody who's anchored more in their past as opposed to the one who's more focused on the future.
And that's sort of the living with less part that you're
it's really focusing on what is your life today, what makes you happy, what do you use, what do you really need about life today, and and the foreseeable future, not the blank slate imaginal future, but really the foreseeable future.
And those are awesome tips. I think for me, something that comes up, especially with business owners, is sort of the idea of the paperwork. So because even though a lot of people are doing things with the cloud or storing things remotely, or we don't have as much paper as maybe we used to, for sure. The town even has a shredding day, where you can shred all of your old stuff. What's something, at least a beginner's tip, I think you could offer maybe for people that have a lot of paper, Even if it's just one thing.
I would remind people that for the most part, if you're 35 and older, you probably learned how to take care of paper from your parents who had no other option than to have paper. So we hold on to it a little easier. What I want people to know is when they take a piece of paper, look at it and say, what is my next action that I need to take with this? If there is no action, you probably don't need to keep it. If the action is, this is definitely something I'm going to need for my taxes, okay, well, that goes in a tax file. If the action is, I need to pay this, I need to RSVP, I need to cancel a subscription, then do the action. But if you can't look at a piece of paper and say, I know what the next action is with this, it actually may not be of value in your house anymore.
Sure, that's interesting. So trying to get people to just, like you said, move methodically through those steps and figuring it out, and they can discard it if there's no action to be taken with it, or no reason to be keeping it, and you can help them kind of get there.
And I think of paper in kind of that functional, so bills and records and other things, and memorabilia, so the kids' artwork, your old greeting cards, all that. It's all pieces of paper, just manifestations of other actions and exchanges. So being able to at least separate those two out, don't try and deal with both at the same time, because it's different parts. This is going to, the functional stuff is your brain, and the memorabilia stuff is your heart. Different decisions.
Yeah, for sure. What it's 5 years. You've got your clients. Your media is, like you said. Now you're on Chamber Chat. So forget the Globe. No, no, right? We're kidding. They're a great member actually of the Chamber. But what do you foresee anything that's next? Or are you just sort of like riding the wave that you are on now?
Yeah, I think. For me, I'm riding the wave. I like the idea of doing a lot more in terms of the speaking. I'd love to do more small business work and consulting in addition to just the organizing, but really working with business leaders around processes and other activities in our space that are really tied to productivity.
It might be holding them back from the next step that they're leaning towards in their business.
So if I can help other small business leaders grow and scale, I love being able to do that. That really gets me to bring my 5 years of organizing and my 20 years of human resources together.
They meet in the middle. Nice harmony.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, believe it or not, I think that's all we have time for today.
This was great.
This was great, and we could keep going. So thank you, Kathy, for being here. So make sure you check out Clever Girl Organizing. Look at our website, give her a call, pick up Better Homes and Gardens, look at the Globe, rewatch the show. There's lots of things that you can do. I'm in contact Kathy, and she can come and kind of let you know like what kind of assistance you might need. But thanks for tuning in to another edition of Chamber Chat. And until next time, I'm Lauren Grymek. Thank you.